Hello everybody. I want to start this video by just saying right up front, I really enjoyed the Super Mario Galaxy movie. Those of you who follow me may have seen my YouTube short that I put up just immediately after I came out of the cinema and went to my car, and my initial reactions were that I quite enjoyed it, but there were some pacing issues and there were some couple of changes. I was keeping it very spoiler free, and now having spent a few days sort of ruminating on it and thinking about it, my opinion has dropped a tad, but not massively, and maybe not for reasons you might be thinking, because I still really enjoy the film, and I think I would watch it again. There was a lot there for Nintendo fans, and I'm going to write a bit more up on my letterbox. I'll link that in the description below, but I still really, really enjoy the film. What started to annoy me, however, was that when I started thinking about certain aspects of the movie, I realized that there were very little, just minor changes they could have made that would have absolutely shot this movie up in terms of its storytelling and the takeaways people are meant to have on it, and even just the pacing in general for this film. Because here's the thing, right? I think everything that Illuminations had here is good and just doesn't quite execute on anything as well as it probably should have. The setup is all very strong, but then the follow through is weak. And so, after thinking about it for a few days now and just sort of talking about it to myself in my own head, I thought I'd rather just make a video and share my thoughts with all of you to just get it out of here, because I keep coming back to it and I keep thinking about it as I'm walking around doing shopping or stuff like that. Let's just get it on the internet and see if anyone agrees with me or my thoughts on how they should have done it, in my opinion. So what I do want to stress with this is that I'm not going to sit here and be like, they should have got rid of all of this scene, they should have added this whole brand new scene in, they should have redone this, they should have changed some things. A big example, I know a lot of people are complaining about Rosalina only getting about 10 minutes worth of screen time at the start and the end of the film. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of people out there saying, oh, they should have made her a prominent part of the cast the whole way through, and obviously that'd be great, but I'm not going to say stuff like that in this video, because there are a million what ifs they could have done. What I want to do is take what Illuminations already had, all the scenes they had, the story they had laid out, all the characters' roles within that story, and just make minor tweaks that would make it better. So that's the kind of things you're going to see from this video. That's where my head has been at. And the main thing I want to focus on with this sort of video is on improving the character arcs. Because the first film had character arcs. Mario had a whole sort of daddy issues character arc going on, where it's about being responsible and trying to live up to what your parents want, etc. And this movie tries to do the same thing, but for other characters instead. And I think the setup for all of this is good, but the execution is bad. And so, to a certain extent on each one. And so I want to focus in on the three major character arcs in this story, outline what happens, and how I think they can be improved. And obviously that does mean there's going to be spoilers in this video. So if you hadn't sort of realized that and you're up to this point, do not watch the rest of it. I'd recommend you go watch the movie instead, because it is a good ride, especially if you're a Mario fan. It's clearly made for Mario fans first and foremost, before it's made for children, adults, moviegoers in general. It's made for Mario fans. Right, let's jump into the first character arc, and that's the one I think got the closest to being executed correctly. And that is Bowser's character arc. So Bowser's is an interesting one, because I think the general consensus online is that it was confused and botched. And I disagree for the most part. It was definitely botched, but I think it's pretty clear what they're going for with the character arc. The audience is led to believe that Bowser is initially, he's pretending to be rehabilitated because he wants the brothers to let him go. Mario doesn't believe it, but Luigi's giving him the benefit of the doubt. And then the plot twist is that when Mario gets angry and frees Bowser by accident, Bowser actually is rehabilitated. He is friendly with them now. He was telling the truth the whole time. Luigi was right to believe him. And then when Bowser sacrifices himself to let the brothers escape the Honey Hive Galaxy, Mario sort of realizes, I guess I was wrong, I should have believed Bowser more, I guess he's really a good guy deep down inside. And then this contrasts with Bowser Jr.'s own perception of his father, because the last time he saw his dad before he went off to boarding school was that Bowser was this big evil king who destroys everything and takes what he wants. And he still believes Bowser's like that. And so Bowser's got this conundrum where his son sees him in a certain light, but he's changed, and he's trying to be a better person. But the reason fans don't think this was executed well and think it was confused is that ultimately Bowser is still one of the main villains of this film. He still fights against Mario alongside Bowser Jr. and just tries to destroy the galaxy, complete opposite of what he was at the start. But I believe the whole point of this character arc is that it's meant to show us that Bowser could be good, but because of Bowser Jr. and Bowser trying to live up to his son's expectations and Bowser Jr. trying to get the goodness out of his dad, Bowser reverts and becomes evil again. And then it's right at the end when Bowser Jr. is in trouble and Dry Bowser turns to Mario and is like, you got to save my boy, that Mario does this because he's seen that he knows that Bowser can actually be a good person deep down. And so it sort of pays off here. Bowser's brief moments of being good earlier on is what convinces Mario to save Bowser Jr. in the end. And the way this is executed in the narrative is that Bowser is sort of fighting with himself, trying to still pretend to be evil for his son while still being concerned about Mario and Peach and etc. But Bowser Jr. pulls him back to the dark side. And I think where this story really needed to focus in on that, the big moment that it sort of failed to get this across, is when Bowser Jr. is fighting the Arwing. When Bowser Jr. is trying to shoot down Fox and the gang, and Bowser is there like, oh, we don't have to kill him, right? Like, Junior's like, well, that's weird, but sure, whatever you say, Dad. And then they get the super scope that turns them into babies. Like, Bowser is clearly showing that he doesn't want to kill them, which Bowser Jr. does want to do. And so he kind of convinces Bowser Jr. to go for the non-lethal approach. But it feels a bit half-assed, because I feel like what should have happened, and what I think would have made this better, is that Bowser Jr. does try to maybe use the super scope on all of them, the whole Arwing, to sink them. And Bowser, in a sort of last-minute panic, tries to stop Jr. from shooting them. And that would have caused Bowser Jr. to misfire and then only hit Mario and Luigi, only turning them into babies. And also would have potentially, Bowser Jr.'s got the super scope, he gets interfered with by Bowser, he drops it, and that's when it falls down to the fossil fields, I can't remember what the planet's called now, with the Arwing. Because right now, as it stands, Bowser Jr. shoots them and then stupidly throws the gun down. It's like, yeah, and then it falls down to the planet, and that gun is the crux. It's the Chekhov's gun that they use to save themselves later on. So the fact that they only managed to get that because Bowser Jr. is stupid and drops it really brings down that whole scene for me. Whereas I think if Bowser had actively interfered with Bowser Jr. in that moment, rather than just standing in the back looking worried, that would have drastically improved that whole setup and payoff. And the other way I think this would turn around is by taking the scene of Bowser and Jr.'s flashback, the one that basically is there to explain Bowser Jr.'s entire motive throughout the story and what his plan is. They should have moved that to after this Arwing scene. Because the way it is now is Bowser and Jr. have a bonding moment to explain to the audience why Bowser Jr. looks up to his dad and what his plans are. And Bowser at this point is still umming and ahhing over everything. And then we get the Arwing scene, and then it's when Bowser gets taken to his planet and shown everything that he then converts. Whereas I think this would have flowed a lot better had Bowser interfered with Jr. Jr. been after the scene, being like, why is my dad trying to save people? He's just been manipulated by them. I need to convince Dad that he's evil. And then then Jr. can remind Bowser of the story Bowser told Jr. when he was younger, then immediately show Bowser that he made that dream of Bowser's come true with Planet Bowser, and then have all the troops rallying going, Bowser, Bowser, like they do in the film. Because these back-to-back would take Bowser from being unsure on the direction he wants to go with his morals, to then Junior just constantly piling on, oh, you got to be evil. You got to be evil. Look, all the people love you because you're their king. And that, I think, would be convincing enough for Bowser to do a heel turn and become bad again. So, like, and then it's Bowser Jr. being in trouble and only being able to turn to Mario at the end that would then snap Bowser back to the other side, which is what it does in the film. But I think that it's that turn from Bowser being kind of a good guy to just being straight up a villain again that's not done correctly. And all the building blocks are there, but it's just not done in the right order. It's not done with the right intensity. And that's why so many people found Bowser's story to be confused. So I think that's how I would change Bowser's story to make it a little better. It's just a tiny change. Just one scene that needed altering and another scene that just needed moving but could otherwise have stayed the same. Because the puppet show is a great scene. I wouldn't change it for the world. And then Bowser's entire character arc would probably have been one of the stronger parts of the film, to be honest. One minor point, and this isn't needed, but I think it would have been nice. I would have preferred if Mario wasn't the one who turned Bowser back to normal. The Honey Hive Galaxy segment's a bit too short, in my opinion, and gets resolved a bit too easily. I think it would have been good if the bees attacking Mario and Luigi and then hitting Bowser in that attack is what turned him back to normal. And then Bowser turning around and saving the bros and staying behind so that they can go to the Gateway Galaxy would have been a much better way of handling that. Because you'd still get the audience, oh no, of Bowser turning back to normal. It wouldn't have been Mario's fault that it happened, but then you still get the catharsism from the turnaround that Bowser is actually a good guy now, and he wasn't lying the whole time. And you'd still get his sacrifice. That is what turns Mario onto his side. And it would have also just made the Honey Hive Galaxy whole section with the Honey Queen just a bit better. A bit more fleshed out than what it currently was. It was a bit over too quickly, in my opinion. So I think, that's not a change that's required, but it would have been nice, I think, in my opinion. Anyway, that's Bowser's story, how I would change it. The next major character arc in this, and one that needs quite a bit more to it, is Peach and Rosalina's. So Peach's storyline in this film is that she feels very melancholic about her past. It's her birthday, but it's not really her birthday because she doesn't know anything about her life before she entered the Mushroom Kingdom. She doesn't know if she's got any family. She feels quite alone. And Mario's there to support her. And then the sort of big conclusion of this storyline is that she discovers that Rosalina is actually her sister, and that she used to grow up with Rosalina, and that they were family. And this motivates her more to save Rosalina, even though she was already motivated to do that. And sort of gives her family again. I understand what they're doing for here. It's a very simple character arc. It wasn't necessarily needed, but it's there. And I think they set it up really well. The scene of Mario and Peach talking on top of the castle, and Peach sharing her worries, is really good. It's a very strong scene. It's great for Mario's very minor character arc through this story, which I wouldn't even call a character arc. I'm not counting it as one of these three, where he likes Peach and he wants to ask her out and give her gifts and stuff like this, and Luigi and Yoshi are supporting him on that. And it really is just more in service of him just being a good guy and helping Peach out throughout the whole story. And their moments together, every scene they have together is great in this film. Peach and Mario, it's very good character moments between the two of them. But anyway, back to Peach's storyline. So that's a very good start, but I find everything else that happens in this story arc to be kind of rushed and not executed well. So when Peach, for example, sees the picture of Rosalina for the first time in the Gateway Galaxy, she gets a sudden flashback that shows a younger Rosalina and also a baby Peach. And that immediately just sort of spoils what their story is. Because it's not that much different when you actually get the full thing than what that moment saw. I think it would have been better for audience suspense if we saw a younger Rosalina, but not the baby version of Peach. Some people would still probably guess it, it's not that deep. But I think if they kept it just even more subtle than I think they probably thought it was, then I think I just would have made the payoff later on much better, because as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, they're going for the sister angle. Got it. So that's like the first minor change I would make to that. And then Peach finds Rosalina through Wart, and then after Mario and Peach bond some more after when they crash land, the Lumas come and save them, and then Peach learns the truth about Rosalina from the library. But it's really half-assed how they go about this, because Peach is just there, and then she sees the library, and she just goes into the library, and then she just pulls out the book, reads her thing, and finds out her past, and is like, oh, cool. And then cut to the next scene. And it's not given the weight or reasoning it needs to. It feels more so like they're like, cool, this is the part where Peach learns about the truth, and the audience learns about the truth. Let's just show the truth and then move on from this. And I just don't think that's good, to be entirely honest. What I think they should have done in this scene is that earlier on, they establish that Rosalina tells the Lumas about Peach and Mario. And so when the Lumas show up, when the Luma shows up and tells Peach about the issue, and is like, I've been looking for you, Peach. Peach is like, how do you know who I am? And then they never bring this up again. Like, obviously Peach finds out when she reads the book, but it would have made more sense, I think, if the Lumas, who already know who Peach, Mario, and Luigi are, like, they bring that up again there, and then maybe Mario asks, like, how do you know who we are? And then they show them the library, and then Peach finds the book, and then learns about her story that way. And then we get, like, more of a reaction from Peach, because she kind of just looks up from the book and smiles, and then it cuts away. But I feel like learning that you actually have a sister and family out there and you're not alone is an emotional revelation that deserved more weight behind it. And Mario was already this whole time consoling her and supporting her. So Peach turning to Mario and being like, I've got a sister, Rosalina's my sister, I've got a family, I can't believe it, I'm not alone. Like, and then Mario being supporting of her of that, and Toad and Luigi, etc. Like, that would have given them more resolve to find Rosalina. It's essentially a case of, like, the film wants the audience to be like, okay, yeah, her resolve is strengthened, without actually saying it, and I think it would have been more impactful if the characters in the story actually said it. Right? And then that would have made the whole her finding the book a little bit less contrived and a bit less forced. And then the final part of this arc, and probably the part of the arc I dislike the most, is actually Peach saving Rosalina. Because it makes total sense for the story. But, like, there's one line that really bothered me in the film when I was watching it. And when Peach is there and Rosalina's trapped in the cage and getting all her life force sucked out of her, and Peach is like, come on, Rosalina, just try a bit harder. I know you can do it. And it's like, well, it's not a matter of trying, Peach. She's getting her life force sucked out of her. Like, I'm sure she wants to escape. It's not a try. Like, that does motivate Rosalina to put their hands together, and then the force of their hands, like, it blows everything up and saves them, and which is fine. But try harder? What? And Rosalina also being like, I knew you'd come here, Peach. No, you didn't. Like, earlier in the story, Rosalina saves the Luma who's captured with her and tells the Luma to escape, but she doesn't tell the Luma to go find Peach. In fact, Rosalina's whole reasoning for sending Peach away in the first place was to keep Peach safe. So, from a character perspective, Rosalina is fine watching Peach, but probably doesn't want her to get into any danger. So the Luma going to Peach was entirely of the Luma's own volition and bringing Peach into this story. Rosalina should be more like, what are you doing here, Peach? Why are you here? And what Peach should have said is not just try harder, but this was Peach's moment to give an emotional speech to her sister who she hasn't seen since she was a baby. And it should have been that emotional speech to Rosalina that then gave Rosalina the motivation or the energy or whatever to actually push through the pain, touch hands, free themselves. Like, I just really don't like how that whole scene plays out, because it just sort of feels like the writers gave up and were just like, yeah, Peach rescues Rosalina with their joint energy and then they hug, cool, end. And it's just, this was where her character arc was meant to pay off for both of Peach and Rosalina, and it just doesn't. And it's just why. And I think that's the thing that annoys me the most about this film. Even when watching the film and I could tell the pacing was off everywhere, when I saw this scene, I was actively like, oh, that's a bit lame. And it doesn't have to be. The scene can play out exactly the same as. It's just that the dialogue needed to be different. It needed to have a bit more emotion behind it. And not Peach just telling Rosalina to try. It's bad. It didn't have to be. That's what I think they should have done for Peach and Rosalina's story. Because as it stands, it has a very strong start, and then the writers seemingly just gave up on having any emotion behind Peach's story when it was probably meant to be the most emotional of the 3 story arcs here. And that's just annoying and upsetting. Oh well. Now for the 3rd character arc, and the least relevant of the 3 of them, to be honest. Toad and Yoshi. So Toad is unfortunately completely sidelined in this film. He goes from being one of the main quartet of the first film to just being an assistant in this one, and it's entirely because they introduced Yoshi and he needed to be part of the quartet, and they decided they couldn't have 5, they had to have a quartet. And so Toad is just there. And it's weird because he's just there, and yet early on in the film, they clearly set up that he doesn't like Yoshi. When Mario and Luigi first find Yoshi, they immediately bond with him, they're immediately friends with him. Yoshi immediately gets along with them, and that's fine. But then when Toad meets Yoshi, he finds Yoshi annoying. Yoshi eats his candy apple. He's like, there's just a dinosaur just shows up in the group, what the heck? And like, if it was just that one-off line and then they never touched upon it again, it'd be whatever. But then when they meet again at the Gateway Galaxy, Toad is like, oh great, Yoshi's here. And Yoshi clearly doesn't care that Toad doesn't like him. he goes in for the nose bump. But they're clearly establishing here that Toad doesn't like Yoshi. And I think from the writer's perspective, the payoff to this is when they're on the fossil planet with the dinosaurs. Because this whole scene is that Mario and Luigi turn into babies and Yoshi and Toad have to work together to save the babies. And then it results in Yoshi saving Toad, and it's from that point on that Toad and Yoshi are buddies again. Now Toad likes Yoshi. And it just doesn't... It feels like there should have been more build-up to this moment. And that the writers just did not bother adding in. And the problem this has is that the fossil planet feels like the most pointless scene in the whole film. Like, it's purely there just to pad out the time and make a big Yoshi's Island reference where the Yoshi has to carry the babies, and you get the T-Rex from Mario Odyssey there. And that's like the only function it serves, because they were chasing Bowser down, they get shot down, and then they immediately almost immediately get rescued by the Lumas, and then just go back into fighting Bowser. And so the whole scene feels like a waste. But it doesn't seem like it was meant to be that way. It feels like this whole point of the scene is to conclude Yoshi and Toad's storyline together. That's why it's Yoshi and Toad, specifically, who have to protect the brothers and fight against the T-Rex. But it doesn't get the build-up it needed for that, and it very easily could have been, because there are plenty of scenes where Yoshi and Toad are still together, like at Peach's birthday party after the candy apple scene, or when Yoshi and Toad are sitting in the R-Wing because they have to sit next to each other because of how the story is like laid out, because they need Mario and Luigi to be with each other so they both get turned into babies. And so, like, there were plenty of opportunities there. Like, if they were in the R-Wing, maybe Yoshi's tail is hitting Toad in the face or something, and Toad is getting annoyed. You could have had Toad give a line when they arrived at the Gateway Galaxy to Peach, being like, oh, that Yoshi's really annoying, blah, 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 something like that, just to show that Toad is actually thinking about this and is more annoyed about it. And some more scenes at Peach's party of just Yoshi accidentally annoying Toad in some way. So, because if you build that up more and more, that Toad is annoyed about Yoshi, then it's more cathartic when Yoshi and Toad are forced to work together to save baby Mario and baby Luigi, and when Toad gets turned into a baby and Yoshi then saves him, like, you've got a reason after that point for Toad to be like, you know what, Yoshi, you're all right. And it just sort of wraps up that character arc quite nicely, because Toad kind of has a moment like that, where he sees Yoshi trying to get the Super Scope, and he's like, oh, Yoshi's pretty cool after all. But that should have happened after that scene, and should have had more build up to it. And that would have helped justify the fossil scene as well, and would have given, like, because that's Yoshi's section, that's Yoshi and Toad's section, it would have justified that whole thing and made it feel a lot less like filler. That's the only change I would have to that. Extremely minor stuff that would have done, like, a ton to that part of the story. So, with Toad being sidelined and staying on the Comet Observatory with Fox, he doesn't get to do anything climactic in the end. Toad feels very sidelined in this. I think I've said this a few times now. And I don't think it needed to be that way. You could have had Toad go down to the planet Bowser and then go with Luigi and Yoshi on that side of things, while Mario and Peach could still stay together and do their 2D section against Bowser and Bowser Jr. And that would have also helped with Toad and Yoshi's story, because now they're actively working together and fighting alongside each other. But the other characters who should have showed up there is Wart and Birdo, and maybe Mouser. Because Wart is great, I love Wart in this film, but he is very much just a distraction. And it's weird because it feels like he's the character who reveals where Rosalina is to Peach. He's a pivotal part of that story, but his inclusion here and the explanation of where he even knows where Rosalina is and all that is just not touched upon, and then he disappears for the whole film. And it's clearly a connection between Wart and Bowser, because Wart rings Bowser Jr. up to warn them that Peach is coming, which is the thing that sends Bowser and Bowser Jr. to the Gateway Galaxy to try and shoot the Arwing down. And I think what would have worked better for me, and for the story in general, but also for me, because I want to see more of Wart, is that Wart and Birdo should have had Wart mainly, but I'm just sort of attaching Birdo onto here, because we get to see more of Birdo that way. There should have been a line from Wart that sort of implied that either he was the one who told Bowser Jr. where Rosalina was, to know that, like, 'cause he's a, underground dealer, whatever. He could have been an info broker for Bowser Jr. That would have been perfectly in character. He could have given Bowser Jr. the information about where Rosalina is, and that's how he knows where Rosalina is when Peach gets it out of him. And you could have established that with a simple line change when Peach and Wart first meet each other, for Wart being, looks like there's another princess for us to kidnap, and then Peach is like, what do you mean? Have you got something to do with Rosalina's disappearance? And that would have established that Wart definitely was involved in that in some way. The other thing I would have done is have Wart and Birdo show up on Planet Bowser, and then maybe fight Luigi and Yoshi and Toad if Toad got to go on the trip. Because then not only do you get a scene where Yoshi and Birdo interact, given their connection in the series, I think that would have been quite fun. Wart gets to make a comeback. Like, you have Wart get humiliated by Peach, ring up Bowser and Bowser Jr. to warn them, and then show up on Planet Bowser to sort of get revenge, but get beaten again by Luigi and Yoshi and maybe Toad. And that could have helped explain a bit more about how Luigi and Yoshi get the question mark blocks, because in the current film, they just see a bunch of Koopas carrying question mark blocks and get the idea to take them, and next time we see them, they've got them. Whereas I think when Peach and Mario get spotted and all the alarms go off, you could have had a scene where Wart and Birdo show up in front of Luigi and Yoshi and try to fight them, and given them a little extra scene. This is the one additional scene I guess I'm adding to my story thoughts, but it's just like, it just makes Wart's appearance earlier, he gets to come back rather than just be a character and plot point completely forgotten about. And all you need is just a short fight scene of Birdo versus Yoshi, Toad versus Mouser, Luigi versus Wart, and have them be defeated there, and they get the question mark blocks. I also think it would be neat if there was a bit of foreshadowing with seeing maybe the Koopas put the specific power-ups into the question mark blocks, so that they don't just feel very convenient and random when the brothers end up using them later, and it's all like the flying one, the exact one Mario needed at that moment. If we had a bit of foreshadowing, even if non-Mario fans wouldn't know what any of that meant, they'd have at least known that, oh, these question mark blocks have items in them that are useful, or power-ups in them that are useful. Doing that would have given Wart and Birdo some more stuff to work with, which I think fans would have appreciated. One other very, very minor change I would make is I don't think Mario should have used the feather power-up at the end, because we had already established a flying power-up with the red star. So then introducing a second flying power-up for the final scene. It's like there for Mario fans to be like, just to have more Mario stuff in it. But I'm sure for non-Mario people, it'd be like, okay, I guess he's flying again. And not through the same power as last time. What's happening here? I think you may as well just not had the feather and just replaced it with the red star as a callback. I think that would have probably worked a bit better. But yeah, those are all the major changes. I think only one very, very minor point I'm just going to chuck in at the end because I wrote it down, is I'm surprised that Lubba didn't show up in this film. And I think that I've seen some people online say, oh, Lubba should have done Fox's role. And Lubba could have done Fox's role, but that wouldn't have been nearly as cool. Lubba doesn't have that main character energy, I'm sorry. Like, Fox was a standout part of this film, and I think using him for those sections was the right call. But Lubba could have been, like, Rosalina's right hand, right? Like, she could have been watching over the Lumas while Rosalina was away. She could have been the one who heard the call from Luigi that he made that got them all saved. She could have been the one who flew the Comet Observatory. She could have been the one who showed Peach the library. Like, with how many characters they were trying to throw at you, the fact that one of the main characters of the Galaxy series wasn't in this film, despite having a very obvious place that she could have been, really confuses me. I don't know why. Justice for Lubba, right? But that's it, really. I think if they made those changes to the character arc, gave Wart and Birdo one additional scene in the climax, and made a couple minor tweaks so Toad got more to do, I think that would have absolutely fixed most of the issues that people had with this. It's still a very fast-paced movie, don't get me wrong. I still think critics wouldn't have liked it, because it's just very fast-paced and stuff. And there's a lot of over-exaggerated hate for this movie I've seen from people. It's crazy some of the things some people have been saying, because it's not a bad movie. It's not cinema, but it didn't need to be cinema. It could have just been a competently told story, and that's really the issue. It starts off as a competently told story, and then the writers seemingly gave up and then didn't finish off all the stuff that they set up, or they jumbled. In the case of Bowser's, they did finish it off, but they sort of messed up the middle, so fans just got confused at why it happened that way in the first place. It's just little changes like that could have solved everything. But alas. Alright, well, that's going to do it for this video. I did really enjoy it. I'm looking forward to the next one. I'm looking forward to the Donkey Kong movie that's going to happen. Looking forward to the Star Fox movie that's going to happen. I'm looking forward to the Zelda movie, which isn't by Illuminations. And I will say this, I think Donkey Kong might get away with it, but if Fox and Zelda were anything like the Mario movie, where they focused on Easter eggs and fast pace and not really on the writing or plot, those movies absolutely can't get away with that. Like, Zelda is a very story-heavy series, and so the film should be as well. That one's not done by Illumination, so it's probably fine. But Star Fox has far less things you can point to, and so if the writing and story is not up to snuff, it's not gonna fly, ironically, given it's Star Fox. But alright, let me know your thoughts on the Mario Galaxy movie, and let me know what you think about my changes, my recommended changes to this. Do you think this, like, just thinking of this in the way I have, would that have fixed the movie for you? Or do you still think the character arcs would have been flawed or needed to be changed? I know there's a lot of people who are angry about how Rosalina's backstory has been changed, and I have my own thoughts on that. I don't necessarily think they needed to change it, but I'm just going with what they presented in this fix. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Alright guys, thanks for listening to me ramble. Catch you another time.